I thought they were going to stand up for me and I didn't stand up for nobody. And then, when it came time for me to stand up, no one stood up for me, right? How I got to paraphrase that, but you know what I mean? But like, when is the world going to look at this and say, okay, there's 4 countries now being leveled, right? Infrastructure. Like at one point, Lebanon was the French Riviera of the Middle East.
That's right.
Now it's like a car park with just rubble. It just looks like a construction site in Beirut and, all these other countries or cities. And now Netanyahu flat out said, I'm not stopping, bro. Like, yo, you're going to get all this war. You're going to get all this bombs.
Farouk, if you were Netanyahu, why would you stop?
Absolutely.
Because you gave, this country, us as the American people, right? He was out a year doing genocide against Palestinians.
Right.
He was like,
unchecked.
So far, ain't nobody do nothing. Ain't nobody even threatened me with an arms embargo. Like, because President Biden could pick up the phone.
And we've said this all the time. He's still president.
Yeah, and he's still the president right now. That's how I say that all the time.
You're still president, bro.
And he could pick up the phone and say, listen, my friend, if you don't get yourself together quick, you will never see a penny from this country.
What's up? Welcome.
Alhan wa salam.
What does that mean, brother?
Welcome.
Oh, that means welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Welcome to a special episode of This Week in White Supremacy. Coming to you live and direct from Pittsburgh as usual. I don't know if we ever say that, but just in case people don't know.
But we do go to other locations.
True.
So, I mean, it's good to...
Yeah, and that's why we're black and gold. You know what I'm saying? It's black and yellow. It's Pittsburgh. My name is Jasiri X. I'm co-founder and CEO of One Hood Media. And this time across the table from me...
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Look, he did. It's just...
It's a miracle.
They're struggling.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
Oh, okay.
Anyways,
all right.
it's me.
We know. It's a miracle.
You had it 3
Oh,
times.
my bad, Miracle. I'm sorry.
See?
Go ahead.
Don't draw any colorism attacks today. We're trying to keep it, you know what I mean?
Mayhem Miracle is trying so hard, but it's not going to work.
Can you be...
I just realized you're wearing a sweater.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole sweater.
Yes,
I just
the
realized
outfit.
that.
I got fashion.
Okay.
I got fashion.
I'm feeling that.
But anyway, it's your girl Miracle, aka Big Bus. What's the Big Bus?
Yes. Thank you, Miracle, for quarterbacking this show. And my brother.
It's your boy, Trouble in the Last, Never Like Supremacy. Niggas love sweaters.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I like you got the I feel like the flowers, I feel like that perfectly represents you.
Yes. I
As
was
a human
feeling
being.
really
Yes.
flowery today.
Yes. I feel that. And we need that growth, right?
Yes.
And speaking of the opposite of flowers, all black.
Yeah. Like my soul.
Okay.
Full-time supervillain, part-time hater, supreme Asiatic, intelligently divine, a revolutionary but gorgeous one. We here.
All right, we here. Yeah. And we're here with a very, very special guest. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Your Palestinian Muslim American sister from Brooklyn, New York.
Come on.
Co-founder of Until Freedom and co-founder of Empower Change, and Linda Sarsour.
Linda Sarsour. Brooklyn, New York City, where they paint murals of Biggie.
That's right.
So, thank you for joining us. I know your schedule has been pretty intense over the last few months, and I really just wanted to start first by just saying, how are you? And, how have you, as somebody that has been obviously, watching what's happening over this last year, how are you just taking care of yourself and the people that you love that are also, Palestinian?
I appreciate that, Jasiri. To be honest with you, it's a very hard question to answer. I never imagined in my life that I would be watching the live stream genocide of my people. I'm talking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I could open my phone at any moment and watch a baby hanging from a building, fathers pulling children out of rubble, mothers screaming, running around hospitals looking for their loved ones. more journalists have been martyred in this genocide than major world wars that we've had before. More children have been killed just in this genocide than in the last 5 years worldwide.
Wow.
And so for me, I feel grateful to be alive, to be able to, speak up, to bear witness to the injustice against my people, to organize. And I will say this for Palestinians in diaspora, like, I'm in awe of Palestinians who can organize through genocide, who you could wake up in the morning and still believe that, everything that you do could actually, help your people back home. But I just feel devastated at points. I feel trauma on a daily basis, but I also feel hope for my people because they're resilient and they're not giving up, and we can't give up here. So just alive, breathing, and grateful.
Praise God.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for that.
You mentioned the live stream, and we have been seeing, I think that's unique in this moment is that, and it kind of, as a Black American, it reminds me a little bit about Ferguson. I remember that Ferguson for me was when we didn't have to necessarily pay attention to mainstream media because there were activists on the ground that were filming. And oftentimes what they were filming was at a different narrative. So we are seeing, things like right from the front lines, right from individuals there. But it does seem like there's still a real lack of desire for mainstream media to cover that. So how do you, as somebody obviously like you're bearing witness, you want to get the word out, what are some of the things that you've been doing or folks have been doing to provide a narrative directly from the people that oftentimes is kind of different from what we see coming from like mainstream media?
We've been watching this back from the Arab Spring, and I think it's something that inspired a lot of people around the world for this idea of citizen journalism, right? Like you didn't need the mainstream media to tell you what was happening in Tahrir Square in Egypt, And I think as the Black Lives Matter movement post Trayvon Martin, and then of course Mike Brown, Eric Garner, et cetera, we got to watch citizen journalists here in the United States. It was just, all you needed was a commitment, some dedication, some courage, and an iPhone to go outside and put that on, and a social media platform at the time like Twitter. And it caused us to watch that. Like, I never watched mainstream media. I didn't care what CNN was saying about what was happening in Ferguson or what was happening in Staten Island or anywhere where there was a police shooting or there was some sort of grave injustice that happened. And that's what's happening in Gaza right now. You don't need the mainstream media, and the mainstream media is complicit in the genocide that's happening, just as they are complicit in the criminalization of Black folks, especially during police shootings, where the first thing you learn about somebody is something they did when they were 14, or maybe they smoked a joint, or you start learning about some sort of part of their life that may have been quote unquote negative, right? It's the same thing. This is what the mainstream media does, criminalizing Black and brown bodies. And what happens with citizen journalism is you unfilter that. You give people an imagery, you give video to people, and you let them break it down. Like in Gaza, they just show you their dead babies. You decide if you think that's wrong or that's right. You decide if bombing entire buildings of people that have full-on families, 60, 70, 80 people, bombing hospitals, bombing churches and mosques, you decide if you think that that's right or that's wrong. And that is what the Palestinian people have done, even amidst being the victims of genocide or for some survivors of genocide. They have painted a picture and they have broken Israeli propaganda in ways that we have seen as transformative for solidarity around the world. Even people who never knew nothing about what's happening in Palestine, they said, I don't know what's going on over there, but what I do know is killing babies ain't okay.
Right.
What I do know is those 2,000 bombs dropping on those people is not okay. What I do know is that they closing schools in Pittsburgh, and they're closing schools in Chicago and in Brooklyn, but apparently we got all this money to be sending to some nation state that's over here murdering brown people. We not with that. Right. And so that's the power of, and then for us, it's our job is to uplift that. It's our job is to share. I mean, I have been someone who has never shared, or at least has committed myself not to share, violence on my pages, not because I'm some self-righteous person. I don't like to add more trauma to people who are already on social media.
Yes.
But there's something about this genocide, because it's on a daily basis. Every once in a while, just in case you forgot, it's been a year every day, and more than a year now. We're in the almost 378th day. Got to show you a video here and there just so you remember that whatever you thought happened a year ago is still happening today, even on a higher level. Like people in Gaza will say that today is worse than even weeks after the initial genocide started. So I hope that something we take away from this is the power of, you know, the movement to cop watch, the movement to pull out your phones, the movement to put out your stories right from the hood. Like, let the people be on the front lines and without all that extra filter from the mainstream media.
And I did want to shout out the sister the Palestinian journalist who won the Emmy Award.
Isan Aouda, yeah.
Absolutely. You know, shout out to her as well, you know, risking her life to help tell that story. I did want to ask one more question and just want to welcome the other folks on the podcast to kind of jump in. We're in the midst of this election, right? We're in this, you know, historic, I mean, it's, you know, every election now, it's like, it could be the last one, but, you know, we have no idea. And I know you were instrumental in really, you know, as far as, you know, we had the uncommitted movement and really kind of pushing, particularly the Democratic Party, to, you know, who's in power right now, to call for a ceasefire, which eventually, you know, a ceasefire was said. It hasn't happened yet. And now folks are calling for an embargo. Just in this moment, one, you know, how are you organizing in this moment to save, you know, more Palestinian lives? And how do you feel like, you know, folks like us or organizations like ours that also do like civic engagement work, what are some of the things that we should be doing to help show solidarity?
I appreciate that, Jasira. You know, the uncommitted movement was a creative way to use the electoral process to put pressure on this Democratic administration. And the thing about Palestinian liberation, Black liberation, all the movements we're a part of, it don't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. Our job is to hold you accountable to our people.
Yes, yeah.
And Michigan sent a very important message to the Democratic Party that when 104,000 people in the state where Donald Trump won only by 10,000 votes back in 2016, that's a message. So you need to get yourself together around that.
Right.
And we have seen some movement rhetorically, because it's always, you know, words versus action. So yes, rhetorically, we have heard the word ceasefire more often than we did in the beginning of the genocide. You know, for me, my work, both Just Like One Hoods and the organizing work you do here, it's about building long-term power. We're not going to free Palestine in an election cycle. We're not going to free Black people in an election cycle.
True.
The question is how do you use this moment to build the type of power that's going to get us to the place and the destination that we want to go to? And that does require solidarity and educating people about how our issues are interconnected. This is a country where people come, for example, communities that I'm from, they're immigrants. They come to this country. Somebody promised them some American dream. They promise them this life. They tell them, here are the underdogs. Here's the place of power. Where do you want to have proximity to what? And people end up learning the hard way that we're actually all in this together. And I wish people wouldn't have to learn the hard way. I wish people understood that solidarity starts with the most marginalized people. And we're the ones eventually who are going to be the majority in this country. And so we better start building that power together starting now. And so I just want to, you know, say that in this election cycle, I'm also looking at down ballot races, because this is never, nowhere in the world has it ever been a top bottom.
True.
It's the bottom up. So if you start developing elected officials in the city councils, right, the local mayors, the school board presidents, school board members, you know, people who are in Congress, in the state legislature, and you start kind of building that very kind of bottom up, then one day we will walk into a polls in a national election where we're actually going to vote for someone who's truly pro-Black and truly pro-immigrant and truly pro-Palestinian. That's time is not right now.
Right.
And so we can't be discouraged in this moment and feel like we're not going to play in this election because we don't like nobody and we don't this. And it's like, it ain't about this election. I mean, if anyone is under any illusion that this is the election that's going to free us all, then we are very delusional. But if this is just one step in a long journey to get to where we need to go, in addition to the other types of organizing that we do, developing mutual aid, you know, buying back the block, you know, working with within our education system, doing the political education and the work that we do on a daily basis, we're going to be on to something at some point. It just might not be right now. And we just got to be okay with this idea that this is not we're not in a sprint, we're in a marathon.
So the mission of One Hood Media is to build liberated communities through art, education, and social justice,
while also bringing impacted people to the table to make sure that they're represented and heard and supported as they build liberated communities.
When you talk about liberation, to me, man, that's such a powerful word, but it's also daunting. It's not something that you're really able to answer until you're faced with the situation and you realize that you're in need of liberation.
The concept of One Hood actually came out of us working around issues of community violence, that like our power is in our unity.
We need to bring in more people, because the more we move as a unit, the more we're able to actually change the infrastructure and really shake things up.
If we establish a legacy, that means we've established a relationship with the people that we serve.
We try to create an environment where you can feel free to be your authentic self in these spaces. And we're hoping in that environment can expand throughout the city. Just speaking on that, and again, if anybody else has a question. More questions every time you speak. I mean, man. We're 1 year removed, and I think I just saw this on Instagram, from when Cori Bush introduced the ceasefire now, October 16th, 2023. Cori Bush was defeated, right, in the primary. Jamal Bowman, one of the other people that stood in that early days of like calling for a ceasefire, also defeated. We were able to keep Summer Lee here, but it was a fight against a lot of money. How do we organize against this kind of flood of money, specifically from organizations like AIPAC, right, who basically made Jamal Bowman's race in New York like the most expensive race that we'd ever seen? I think they said more money was spent on Jamal Bowman's race than every single race in England. In terms of politics, what are some ways we can fight back against this like flood of money coming from these private groups?
So I'm going to just make this point, because I don't know if this goes over people's head. Notice that there were a couple of people that supported ceasefire in the beginning, and there's a couple of members of Congress that have supported some sort of legislation that may be supportive to the Palestinian. Let's say, for example, like Betty McCollum has this bill about stopping the detention of Palestinian children. There's been people like Mark Pecan out in Wisconsin that has said some very pro-Palestinian things in the past. Notice that AIPAC is going after the black people.
Come on.
And I think that a show focusing on white supremacy, that's how it plays out, because that's how you fracture solidarity. You basically put fear in the hearts of other marginalized people who are standing with Palestinians in this moment, and you basically punish them for even believing or doing the right thing. And I think that for me is really important, right? Jamal Bowman lost the race where there was some redistricting. So the whole story wasn't that he just lost because of Palestine. Okay. And let's also be clear, in both the Cori Bush race and in the Jamal Bowman race, AIPAC, what they did was they never put ads out about Israel-Palestine. They never said Jamal Bowman is pro-Palestine. That wasn't what they used. What they basically used against them, and I was in St. Louis organizing for Cori. I sat in a hotel one night and I started clicking the television. The ads were basically that Cori Bush was against Joe Biden, that Cori Bush was like basically the enemy to the Democratic Party. Like, she didn't let Joe Biden fulfill his agenda. Right. So her opposition came out and was like, I'm going to stay aligned with my party. I'm going to do whatever the president of the United States do. Because they knew that the Palestine-Israel stuff was actually not going to fly during a genocide, where no one was going to sit in front of the TV and be like, oh, wait, it's wrong to say that killing Palestinian children should be something that should be stopped. So they actually didn't use that against them. So AIPAC is starting to get smart by going after pro-Palestinian voices in Congress, but not using that as the reason why they defeat those people. And to your point, the money's big. Now, mind you, they spent a lot of money on Cori Bush too, and people were like, oh, it was more money on Jamal Bowman. But if you think about the St. Louis media market, it's way cheaper than New York. You're right. So they pretty much spent the same amount on Cori that they did on Jamal. And I think one of the things that I appreciated about both Jamal and Cori is that even after they lost, they was out swinging on AIPAC. They were like, they didn't say, oh, we could have, I could have took some stuff back that I said and did. They all went, and I don't know if you listened to both of their speeches on election night, but Cori Bush was on fire. She said, you wait and see, we're going to take down AIPAC, and we're going to do this and do that. So, it was hard. I'm not going to lie to you. It hurt my heart a little bit because they are incredible, brave Black revolutionaries. Like, they are really walking in that path, even as members of Congress. And I still believe that 2026 comes around. I think we're getting ourselves together more organized politically, and we're going to have a lot more Cori Bushes and Jamal Bowmans in there. It was just a little, you know, sometimes you got to see a little darkness before the light.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Miracle?
So you talk about that. I think also people forget with both Cori and Jamal that the margin that they lost was actually reduced because of the work that, like, you were doing, because of the amount of money that Muslim organizations and Muslim voters were able to donate to these campaigns. And so I know a lot of the times we talk about like campaign finance, but can you also talk about some of the work that you're doing, just like educating people about these elections and like how they work, whether they're open primaries or closed primaries? Because I think that sometimes people get disenfranchised because the system is created to leave us out. But like, you're doing a lot of the work with Empower, bringing people back in and getting them involved.
Absolutely. You know, I remember during the that concession speech that Jamal Bowman did that night, which is public, he actually spent a lot of time talking about the Muslim community and how they supported him. He raised millions of dollars, much of it coming out of Muslim communities across this country. And he was grateful for it. And it was because our community is starting to be much more well organized. Of course, we have poor Muslims. Absolutely. We have poor Muslims. We have poor refugees in our community, et cetera. But we also got a lot of rich Muslims and a lot of Muslims with resources and a lot of Muslims who are professionals, doctors, lawyers, engineers. And it is our job, our responsibility to organize their money for good. And I think this genocide really has woken up a lot of people. And now people are saying, wait a minute. The people that support AIPAC, they're not smarter than us. They don't got more money than we do. They don't love Israel more than we love the Palestinian people. So what's the problem? Like, why are we not as organized? And so there have been PACs that have been developed across the country in the last year. There are people already identifying candidates for 2026. And you know, that solidarity also, even when we talk about Michigan and the uncommitted, a lot of people think that the 104,000 people in Michigan that voted uncommitted were all Muslim people. They weren't. We had high numbers coming out of Detroit, south side of Detroit, mostly Black folks. We had white progressives. We had Jewish folks that were, or anti-Zionist Jewish folks that were like, we would chew on that. So we're building a movement here. We also have co-founded Reject AIPAC Coalition. This is a coalition of many progressive organizations, including the Working Families Party, Justice Democrats, People's Action, et cetera, who are developing our course of action, our coalition, our work, pooling our resources together so that we could defeat the folks at AIPAC. And in the meantime, Miracle, you brought up a great point, the political education in our community to start working on campaign finance reform. Because at the end of the day, if we don't work on that, then anybody could buy our elections, right? And then it keeps people out. It keeps young Black folks out from running. Like, where is a young Black person supposed to find $10 million to run for Congress, for example? And campaign finance only allows a certain type of people to not only run, but to win and then to keep winning. Because Cori made a won the second time around, but then it was hard for her to maintain that type of level of fundraising because of the way campaign finance works. Cryptocurrency was in her campaign. The pharmaceutical industry comes in. The Rifles Association is putting money in there. It's unlimited for the PACs. The PACs could put in $500 million if they wanted to, because there's no limitations on that. And so as we fight for legislation around police accountability, around immigration reform, around all the things, we got to also get our community to say, take dark money out of politics. But in the meantime, we might have to play the system that exists while we're trying to change it. Because if we don't compete, we're going to lose a lot more Coris and Jamals, not just in Congress, but on the local levels too.
Yeah, and you do a lot of like solidarity building work, and we I did a presentation earlier and we was talking about sometimes the drawback to solidarity isn't the work, it's that people learn what you care about and try to use that and weaponize that against you, right? And we see a lot of that marketing of like, if you care about this, then you'll vote for this person who's going to harm you, but they're going to harm you less. And so a lot of times when you talk about building liberation, it's all of us or kind of like none of us. So how have you been able to navigate solidarity building and keep it as like the root of the work that you're doing when it has so many drawbacks?
Absolutely. I mean, solidarity is about relationships. It's about being in community with one another. And a lot of people think solidarity is like a theoretical thing. It's actually practice. It's like how we show up for one another. And also being able to work internally in our communities. We come from communities where there's anti-Blackness, there is misogyny, there's different kinds of things that we have to deal with regardless of what communities we're organizing in. So that's the internal work, and then the work we got to do in solidarity. And also teaching people about elections. Elections is not solidarity. I hate when people tell me, showing up in an election, it's because I'm doing an act of solidarity. No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm choosing my opponent. And like, for example, like even when we think about our quote friends in Congress, like Corey's our friend, Jamal's our friend, Rashida's our friend, Summer's our friend. But in reality, they are also our opponents, right? They sometimes we're going to have to challenge the people that we love too, that we respect, whether they're serving in the city council or they're serving in Congress or even in the White House. So when I organize an election is not about solidarity. It's about who do I want to fight to get the things that I want for my people and for my friends and my allies. And I think if we keep thinking about elections in that way, that this is an idea of like, I'm doing something for you because I'm showing up in a certain way for an election, it's not okay to weaponize people. Like right now, there's a lot of weaponization of this election, in my opinion, that's fracturing Black and Palestinians in this movement, right? Like this idea that when people say, oh, if you're voting for Kamala, that means that, you're not in solidarity with Black people. This is not about solidarity. This is about everyone deciding what the best thing to do for the people they come from. So don't try to make it a thing about solidarity. And same thing for, the other way around, right? So this idea that like, we got to vote for Kamala because Kamala, is going to do this, that, and this for our people. No, she's probably not going to do any of those things until January something, and y'all outside telling her this is what we demand for you to do. Like no one in office just does the right thing. They require a movement to do the right thing. And the most powerful way to get people to do the things you want them to do is us coming together and demanding things together. Because even on the issue of Palestine, right now, every community, particularly Black and brown communities, if you sat in any, I'm sure, One Hood does this all the time, you ask people what it is that they want. My kids deserve better public schools. They deserve more resources. We deserve more after-school programs in our community. There's all these people in our communities who are, overdosing on fentanyl and all these things. These people need help. They need people to lift them up. They need resources. We need more substance abuse programs. We need this. We need that. And then there's the Palestinians in a genocide, and you found that over the course of just of the last year, in addition to the usual money that Israel gets, got another $20-something billion. And that's the connection. They say, you know what? I, as a person from Pittsburgh or from Brooklyn, I prefer that our taxpayer dollars go to build schools in Pittsburgh or build substance abuse programs than they are to go killing Palestinian children in Palestine. And I think the young people in particular on the college campuses are making those connections in really powerful ways.
Now these many years later, I am older, wiser, back in the saddle, riding an old war horse, searching for the fuel, for all the howls and whispers and songs that I might uncover while storming the barricade. This adds to that fuel. It empowers me in my search for the limitations of my art. And for that most precious of gifts, I thank you.
I would like to say, like, just look at knowing you and I think being in spaces with you. First off, thank you. Secondly, it's been dope because you've kind of been this beacon of solidarity, right, between these two communities. Like where you sit in this intersection has always been fascinating to me, and like I've always looked at it with a great deal of adoration because we talked about this off camera. Like there's so many nuanced conversations between Black and Palestinian communities, right? And we had talked about how a lot of people in the States were forced to reckon with a tragedy that's not in front of them, and how difficult it is to kind of like grapple with, okay, like this is an issue clearly, but it's not happening to me directly, and where the impact comes from that. And I think, and I had highlighted this before, Miracle has done like a really good job about drawing a parallel between what's happening in Palestine and what's happening to Black people in America. And I think that people like you being in the position that you're in, being so visible when Black people are being murdered, right? Your track record is like, yo, there's no smut on your rap. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, everybody lodge up Linda. You know what I mean? And I think there's this opens up to a conversation that some people are very, it's difficult to have. And we've had it here, and we've talked about this nuanced relationship. And then where we are right now as political constituents. Kamala's on one side, Trump's on another side. The Green Party has who they have. And it's like, okay, what does a vote mean right now? Right? How do people who rest at this intersection, and I always talk about this, me being Black, Arab, and immigrant, and Muslim, and formerly incarcerated. Who do I you know what I mean? People, but I'm not unique. There's millions of people that have the same backstory as me.
True.
And so what would you tell someone like that who's like, I don't know how to vote. I don't know what to do this election. I don't know where my allegiances lie. Do I go culture? Do I go ethnicity? Do I go nationality? Do I go religion? How do, you know what I mean?
That's a great question.
So how would you talk to someone like that?
This is literally what I've been doing for the last 6 months.
Right.
It's okay. He don't watch your lives, Linda.
No, it's a courageous conversation. Every
His
single day.
algorithm is different on Instagram. His search.
I don't want to see that. It's a courageous conversation every day. And what I'll say to you, Farouk, is I just want you to imagine this, the people that I'm talking to directly, the people I'm trying to organize, these are folks who are in deep trauma.
Right.
The shit is deep. These are people that are watching videos coming out of Palestine, and they're not just looking at the video and being like, wow, look at this baby that got no arms.
Right.
They're watching a video being like, oh, I recognize that guy in the back. That's my uncle over there. This is a very visceral reaction that they have to what's happening over there. And the thing that makes this even more traumatic for Palestinians is that we're paying for that. Imagine that we got to sit here as Palestinians in the United States of America who pay taxes to this government. I know that I'm complicit in my own people's murder. It's not like there's a civil war over there where there's two peoples fighting and you're like, that's so bad. There's a war between these two countries or these two peoples. This is me funding my government. Every bomb that drops, our people will pick up a piece of shrapnel and it'll straight say made in the USA. Absolutely, yeah. And so when I'm having these conversations, people are hurt. Yeah, they feel betrayed. They feel outraged. And then they're also like, sis, this is Democrats in the White House. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? This is not even, because the thing that I actually thought about a few times during this genocide, I said, I wonder if Donald Trump were the president right now, where would more people be right now? Because people love to hate Donald Trump they just wanted to be outside.
He does make it easy though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he doesn't do it.
And I wonder if there was more, there would have been more of a outrage in this country if this genocide were happening under the watch of a Donald Trump. Because there's been so much justification, right, of everything that's been happening, even from liberals and others trying to figure out how to justify, explain what's going on. So when people are talking to me about voting, they're really visceral about it. And I keep telling people, this in the Muslim faith, we say, lower your gaze. Right, lower your gaze. I say, when you go to the polls, lower your gaze. Stop being so distracted by the top of the ticket that you forget that there are people all the way down the ballot and in the back of the ballot with some ballot measures that actually impact your daily life. Because the funding for our public education, the transportation, the services that we require to thrive in our communities is actually being decided on the local level. By the time the federal government decides on something and it hits the community, years go by before they pass a policing legislation. But you could ban no-knock warrants right now. Right. You could, people don't like us to say defund police, but you could, reappropriate funding from policing to substance abuse programs, to schools, to et cetera, by going down the ballot. And so that's what I'm telling my people. I know you're hurt. And I know you don't believe the system works for you, but I also remind them that if your voting didn't matter, there wouldn't be people every day waking up in this country trying to figure out how to take your voting rights away. That's one thing I always say. And here's a question I want to ask you, because you talked about the down ballot elections. And again, this is where Miracle shines and what One Her Power does, our scorecards and bringing kind of that attention to people who, they're not when I said use the word politically acute, they don't know really what's happening, right? And they're kind of locked into just what's being on CNN or MSNBC or Fox, and they don't know about down ballot elections. So we've made this very plain for people with something accessible and something very just user friendly to go to the ballots with. But the question I would ask is, Netanyahu said today there's going to be more war, right? And in 1 year, it was never localized in Gaza or Palestine, right? There was always incursions across the Middle East, but we've seen Lebanon, we've seen Syria,
Yemen. So that's what, 4 countries in a year. What's next? Like when does it become too much? And when is it? And I'm not gonna say I was guilty of not being concerned with Palestine, but I definitely had to. Yes, stuck for law, but I'm still here in the States dealing with a lot of police brutality. I'm dealing with so many things here as a black person who identifies as black and Muslim in the States, dealing with my own things.
That's right.
But when Lebanon got looped into it, I was like, wait a second.
That's me.
I remember when my mom, I remember in 2006 and 2008 in the airstrikes, and I remember my mom telling me, all the family you could have ever met is now dead, right? And it became so much heavier. And it's kind of like that thing about what Anne Frank was like, what they say is like, I thought they were going to stand up for me and I didn't stand up for nobody. And then, when it came time for me to stand up, no one stood up for me, right? Or how I got to paraphrase that, but you know what I mean? But like, when is the world going to look at this and say, okay, there's 4 countries now being leveled, right? Infrastructure. Like at one point, Lebanon was the French Riviera of the Middle East.
That's right.
Now it's like a car park with just rubble. It just looks like a construction site in Beirut and, all these other countries or cities. And now Netanyahu flat out said, I'm not stopping, bro. Like, yo, you're going to get all this war. You're going to get all this bombs.
Farouk, if you were Netanyahu, why would you stop?
Absolutely.
Because you gave, this country, us as the American people, right? He was out a year doing genocide against Palestinians.
Right.
He was like,
unchecked.
So far, ain't nobody do nothing. Ain't nobody even threatened me with an arms embargo. Like, because President Biden could pick up the phone.
And we've said this all the time. He's still president.
Yeah. And he's still the president right now. That's how I say that all the time.
You're still president, bro.
And he could pick up the phone and say, listen, my friend, if you don't get yourself together quick, you will never see a penny from this country.
And they just sent another, was it $17.8 billion?
During the Lebanon war between Israel and Lebanon back in the 80s, President Reagan was a Republican. He was the president.
Yes.
There is a front page article of the New York Times. I want people to look it up. And it actually chronicles a phone call that Reagan made to the prime minister of Israel at the time and said, listen, I'm calling you right now, literally threatened him. He said, I'm going to call you right now. I'm going to leave you for a couple of hours. But when you call me back, you better be calling me back to tell me there was a ceasefire.
Right.
And you best to believe in the front page of the New York, they chronicled the time that the conversation happened, when that guy called him back. And the call back was like, not only was it like, oh, we got a ceasefire.
Yeah.
You still my friend? Like,
right,
because the prime minister of Israel was like, yo, if the U.S. ain't our friend, we in trouble.
This was before Ariel Sharon, right? This the guy before Sharon?
It was a prime minister before Sharon.
Yeah.
You just had Biden say, I think like he gave like a 30-day.
Yeah. So basically, Joe Biden, his administration. By the way, that letter was leaked out. It wasn't supposed to, for your and my
30
consumption.
days to live or 30 days.
Yeah.
To...
So that letter went out exactly. So he basically got the administration wrote a little secret letter to the Israeli government, to Netanyahu and his people, that we ended up all seeing that we weren't supposed to, and basically said. Yeah, basically said, y'all got 30 days to get that aid into the Palestinians, or there's going to be some consequences, maybe some sort of weapons embargo. 30 days, them people.
That's a long time.
The northern Gaza has not gotten a drop of water in.
And the CNN
since I think they said October 1st.
So CNN reported on this, and I posted it up, and I know other people did. It was like, oh yeah, no food in Gaza for a week. It's like, why? Why? Like they
Why would food do that?
Yeah. Why would the Gaza people of Gaza starve themselves? Why would food deny themselves?
But not only that, but you came out to threaten the brother right now when you had 374 days of evidence of starving them people. Now all of a sudden you're giving them another 30 days. You already have.
There's so many people who aren't going to make it 30 days. Like that's a long time. Like and not just like the trauma your body is going through right now. So. It's mind-boggling to me that, and the question I had asked you is more of like a rhetorical for a lot of the people who watch this show. Yeah. But what's crazy to me is that there are still people who can watch something like this. They can see what happened over the weekend, the hospital, like that kind of tent city hospital that was burned, and people can be like, yes. And there was a meme that was shared that was so powerful to me. It was, would you bomb a school just because a school shooter is in there?
Right. If a school
and
shooter
kill all the kids. That question.
And that's essentially what's happening right now.
This came out today. Linda, and today is October 18th. It says that Joe Biden has, and this is from Al Jazeera, it has expressed optimism about preventing an all-out war between Israel and Iran, but sounded less confident about the prospects of a ceasefire in Gaza. It said he was in meeting with leaders from Germany, France, United Kingdom. He said, quote, "There's an opportunity in my view, and my colleagues agree, that we can probably deal with Israel and Iran in the way that ends the conflict for a while. In other words, it stops the back and forth, but that the, I guess, ceasefire negotiations are still..."
Jasiri, how are you supposed to ceasefire a conversation if you killing all the people that you're supposed to be ceasefire
Iran's
talking
basically
with?
like, you fuck around and fuck around, you gonna fuck around and get smoked.
Yeah.
Like, they ain't...
And
She's talking about Gaza, right?
But also in Lebanon, like all the
Oh, yeah.
people that are going to have to come to the table, whether you like them or not, regardless of how you label them,
Right.
them the people that got to say, we going to do the ceasefire, right? Because the people that got to say, I'm going to do a ceasefire are the people that are engaging in the combat. But you're killing everybody. So I don't know how this is supposed to work. They haven't been that. And then that's the thing that also is pissing off a lot of voters, because every time you hear Kamala Harris, she says, we are tirelessly working for a ceasefire. Sis, just keep on going with your campaign. Don't tell the people you tirelessly doing nothing, because there is no ceasefire talks for you to be saying that you tirelessly working on a ceasefire.
Right.
If you kill all the leadership is gone. I think that is one of the things that took people by surprise. I know Treble has a question too. Is just like the lack of care. It almost seemed like this administration didn't realize that A, people spoke Arabic, B, people could translate information, or C, that people would fact check them. Because we watch all of these videos, we look at what happened with Hine, and they say, oh, we didn't have soldiers in the area. I'm like, well, we can look at the satellite imagery and we see the tanks, and we get all of these lies, and our government is literally lying to us. So how has that been, just like doing all of this work, but then also trying to like understand that these folks really do not care about me and my community, and now we have to change that, because like right now it's Palestinians, but we know it's going to be transgender people, it's going to be black people, it's going to be immigrants, it's going to be somebody else next. Right now it's the Palestinian people the government is disregarding. But like, how are you navigating this moment? Because it's, to me, as someone who went to law school and believed in international humanitarian law, was like, oh, if you can prove A, B, and C, this is it. And it's like, oh, you're lying? Oh, you're finding workarounds? That's not what the law is for. So, like, that has been something I've struggled with. And I got to imagine it's got to be even more for someone who's been in this work longer.
I think for me, Miracle, the thing that like devastates me is not even just me on a personal level, but seeing like the community that I come from, particularly children who are watching other children, and seeing the dehumanization of Palestinian people and Arab people in general. Like, it's almost like, oh, it's just a bunch of Arabs getting killed. Like, it's nothing. Like, people just feeling like the most devalued. Sometimes people will say, look at them, they're living there like animals. And I was like, but in the United States of America, if you showed some white people like a whole bunch of starving dogs, trust me, they go and get up and organize. Like, they just not gonna let that happen. So that means that we're being even treated even less than animals. And to your point, I keep saying it's not even about the next and the next. It's just adding people to the list, because all the marginalized communities you mentioned are already on the chopping block in this country. We're just an additional group of people that have kind of, I guess, joined that fray. And that's why solidarity is so important, because our liberation is bound up together whether we like it or not. And that's why, even from the political side, the reason why a group like AIPAC targets black elected officials is for that very reason, because they don't want to see solidarity between black and Palestinian people, because they know that there's power in that when we start showing up for one another in ways that are really transformative and powerful. And at some point, you may be bombing Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Gaza, and the West Bank all at the same time.
Right.
And it's going to get bigger than that, and it is going to impact us. It's going to impact our gas prices. That shouldn't be the reason. And that's the thing. It shouldn't be the reason why we care about people getting.
But they don't remember there's a storm, and like how that happened, like the impact. And if that's where you draw the line, that's fine, right? And I can't sit here and say that we have to play respectability politics for everything like that, because the truth of the matter is not everybody has the same metric and moral compass that we do and value human life, and that's fine. But when this gets out of hand, think about everything: Arabica beans, coffee, right? Oil, petrol, all these different imports that come from the Middle East rice, you know, all the things that are produced over there. That's when you're gonna really feel this impact, and then global economy is gonna shift because like war is expensive.
Absolutely.
This is ridiculously expensive to uphold.
It's not just money expensive. Like, I can't even believe sometimes when I sit and think about this. We went into a war in Iraq because somebody lied to us and told us that there's weapons of mass destruction.
Right, and what'd you find?
And we go over there. Sand and people and culture, and you killed almost 1 million Iraqis, 12,000 American soldiers. You sent people's children to fight a war. That was a frivolous. And then 20 years later, you tell me, oops, they came out of apologize. You apologize.
You don't oops deaf.
Yeah, and then Afghanistan, we go into a war in Afghanistan.
I mean, it's been happening. Afghanistan has been occupied since the 80s.
Yeah, and even the war, the all-on-out war, the one that Barbara Lee was the only member of Congress to vote against.
Right.
They told us, we got to go to Afghanistan because we going to fight the Taliban and we going to make sure the Taliban, is down and all that. Guess what happens? You withdraw about 2 years ago from Afghanistan, and guess who's the leaders of Afghanistan right now? Mm-hmm. The Taliban. So you sat there for 21 years, you killed Afghanis, you dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. There are people who are going to have long-term implications from the type of chemical warfare that we did there.
Vietnam.
Literally. And then the same people you told us that you was trying to get rid of are now the people who are the bosses of Afghanistan.
Right.
You can't even make this stuff up.
Don't get me started. Linda, don't get me started on that.
Don't get me started. You get me started.
So I want to go to Treble, and then I have a couple more questions, and then we can kind of close out. Treble.
So, you had mentioned earlier the beautiful work that's being done in universities around the country, organizing around what's going on in Palestine. And there's still a lot of people in my generation who don't have access to university, who are just inner city kids, who are seeing this on social media, and they're kind of like, they feel defeated. They feel like, what can I do? What is my place in this fight? And what is my place in this organization? And my question to you is, what words of wisdom do you have for people who are seeing this and don't know what their place in the fight might be?
I love that. I'm going to do a little Muslim thing here because this actually, I say this to young people all the time, and it actually resonates even with kids who ain't Muslim. In Islam, we say that if you see an injustice, try to change it with your hand. And if you can't do that, change it with your tongue. And if you can't do that, hate the injustice with your heart, which is the weakest form of faith. And so what I say to young people, if you feel like you can't change it, like you actually can't physically change the injustice that you see that's around you, at least speak up about it. All the young people got smartphones. You all got social media. It's cool between some of the hip hop videos and some other stuff that you post on the internet. Every couple of posts you can say, hey, there's something happening over here to the Palestinian people and this ain't right. Read this video, watch this video, read this. There's a lot of informative videos that have gone out from young people. The young people out there breaking down what's happening in Palestine in ways that the mainstream media could only dream of. Viral videos on TikTok, on Instagram by young people who are doing their own research, many of them young Black people. And it's been so inspiring for me to watch. So I always just say to young people, the thing that you could do, speak up, because in any time in history, the enemy wasn't just those who were doing the oppressing. It was those that decided to be silent. And everybody has a responsibility, even if it's just to talk to your friend. Just be like, yo, you hearing about what's happened to these Palestinian people? Bro, our government is sending bombs over there. They're killing them kids. And let me show you. Kids get moved. I've seen kids as young as high school that I went to, and they asking me all kind of questions. They say, how we let this happen? What you mean our government is sending bombs over there? That ain't right. That's all I need them to know. To get a new generation that's out, that's basically saying, I'm not going to sit idly by. And also when you hear about something, Pittsburgh got stuff going on, find a political home. And I think One Hood is a great example of what that looks like, a place that's relevant, right? A place that is going to speak and meet young people where they're at. And I'm grateful that communities have groups like One Hood, because a lot of these groups now, this year, in ways that I've never seen before, have started making those connections, groups coming out and saying, we're going to stand with Palestine. We're going to go outside and, to the city hall to do the, ceasefire resolutions and things like that. And I've seen, if you watch any of the ceasefire resolution videos from Los Angeles, from Atlanta, from Hartford, from San Francisco, I swear to God, half the people be young Black college students up there saying, really articulating a message in ways that have been extremely powerful. So young people should never feel defeated, because the one thing that they can't take from you is your voice. And that's the least that you can do.
So powerful. So I did have one last question, because we have not brought up the existential threat that is Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump, who in the debate, right? And other times has really like used the word Palestinian as a slur, like calling people, oh, I think he's Palestinian, like in a negative way. So again, like, and it's more, kind of to Farouk's point. I mean, when you see, we're here in Pennsylvania, we're in a swing state, we're in one of those states that could decide the election. Like from your perspective, I mean, do you see Trump as like a bigger threat? Possibly. Like, how are you just viewing the election and where we are right now?
You know, people keep saying to me something about, well, Donald Trump is like a hypothetical. Like, you keep trying to bring up Donald Trump as a hypothetical. No, I got facts about Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the president of the United States for 4 years. Let's talk about him in Palestine. There has been a request from the Israeli government that dates back to Dwight Eisenhower. So that's a long time ago.
Yes.
To move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and to declare Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And every Republican and Democratic administration has literally rejected that request for decades. Yep. Donald Trump rolled up. He said, yeah, y'all, what y'all want? You want Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel? I got you. And he moved the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And in the same day that they were having the celebration in Israel, in Jerusalem, there was CNN had two side-by-sides, basically, on the television. One was them celebrating with John Hagee, with all the anti-Semites, homophobes, everybody. They were all hanging out with them in Jerusalem, talking about Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and celebrating the opening of the embassy. And the other side of the screen, split screen, was the Great Return March, where Israel was sniping Palestinians, literally dropping dead while they're over there. So that's one. Then Donald Trump declared Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, right? This is a man, my friends, who has already shown you who he is. Right. He is someone who has supported the expansion of settlements, right? This is not a man that's coming in here trying to do nothing transformative. So just because we are so outraged by this current Democratic administration and should be absolutely with their aiding and abetting of genocide, don't tell me nothing about Donald Trump. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who had basically running his Middle East politics, basically was saying Gaza would be a great waterfront property. This is a man that knows that there's oil, there's resources, and that Gaza is on the Mediterranean Sea. Like, Donald Trump is not your friend, right? And so the thing here is that don't use the pain of the Palestinian people in this moment to try to somehow put your brain into a pretzel to try to explain to me that Donald Trump might, in fact, actually be better for us on Palestine. Come on, people. It's not okay for me. So yes, go out there and be outraged at Kamala Harris and at Joe Biden for being part of an administration that allowed this to happen. But to act like somehow Donald Trump winning this election is somehow a good thing is just outrageous, because it's not going to be good for the Palestinians, nor is it going to be good for our neighbors. Right. And for me, yes, of course, my priority in this moment, because we are viscerally and dealing with this trauma of a genocide. Of course, my people are looking at genocide first and foremost.
Yes.
But I also love my people and my neighbors. And I know Donald Trump, because let me tell you about the people that out here talking all the politics stuff. I was outside for 4 years. Them people know me by name. Donald Trump Jr. knows me by Linda Sarsour. Yes. Like, the highest offices of this land knew me by name.
That's right.
I'm glad, damn, I survived. God decided that I was going to survive those 4 years, but I could have not survived.
True.
So most of the people talking all that stuff ain't the people outside, because you just hearing me, folks at One Hood, I'm going to be outside on November 6th and November 7th and January. So you tell me if you're going to be outside, because I'm going to be outside regardless of if it's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And let us all be very clear here, because this is another thing. You could and if you don't live in a swing state, of course, vote your conscience. Do what you got to do in that moment. And I'm with you all the way. But don't do this thing where you actually want me to believe that in this moment today, that a third party can go to the White House. So the reality that I deal with every day, because I'm a realist.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Listen, I'm an idealist too.
Come on, let's go.
I'm an organizer too.
Talk heavy.
Yes.
I build power too. I hate the two-party system too.
Me too.
But I'm not sitting here under any illusion that on November 6th,
talk heavy,
Jill Stein or Cornel West are going to the White House. Come on, friends. Let's just be real with what we're dealing with here in this moment. And again,
I mean, Trump said it himself. A vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Trump.
He did say that.
In this election season, what you are doing is you are deciding who your opponent is. Like, that's what I decide.
Harm reduction.
Who am I getting into the ring to fight?
Yeah.
And you know what? Eventually, we're gonna have to fight whoever. But I'm ready to fight Kamala if Kamala is the next president of the United States of America.
Wow. Powerful, powerful words.
I'm so glad you came.
Yes. And we know you have to leave now because you have another event to go to. We're so thankful and appreciative that, you took the time out to talk to us, to educate us. And, you're definitely in our prayers. Your family and your community is in our prayers. And we just thank you for, in the midst of what is some of the most horrific circumstances that we've seen, that you're still showing up strong, powerful voice and with optimism about what we could do to make this world a better place for everybody. So thank you for that.
I appreciate you at One Hood. Friends forever, solidarity forever.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So our white pages, speaking of, it says practicing new worlds. Yeah, we need to practice new worlds. This is from the Emergent Strategy.
Going to different planets?
We know you want to go to space, right?
Fuck these niggas, I'm going to space, man.
This is from the Emergent Strategy series. We just had Adrienne Marie Brown here, who did a powerful conversation with us last month. This is from her Abolition and Emergent Strategy. This is Andrea Ritchie. Practicing New Worlds is our white pages today. It said practicing new worlds is right on time. As organizers look for different ways to navigate multiple crises, Andrea Ritchie offers generative ideas at the intersection of emergent strategy and PIC abolition.
That's right. Andrea Ritchie is absolutely amazing. Highly recommended.
Okay, so this is up. So we got another cosign, you know what I'm saying? Not on the back of the book, but shout out to Andrea and definitely Adrienne Marie Brown and all the great work she's doing. Final words.
I'm also for Terraform.
Okay. Miracle, any final words from you?
This is why I don't like to have men on the podcast. But no, it's good. I really appreciate you.
Trouble?
My final words are for my musician friends. Music is entertaining, but it's also a tool of liberation. And never lose sight.
Yeah, and you got some liberating music on the way.
It's already out.
Okay, already out. So go get your liberation on. And my brother.
Same thing, man. Revolutionary but gorgeous on all digital streaming platforms right now. Soundtrack to
Revolutionary but gorgeous.
Come on, let's go.
One Hood Media and One Hood Power in these streets, making sure our community's voices are heard, making sure that our community is building that long-term power that we talked about today, necessary for our liberation. And so, that being said, peace, y'all.
Peace.
This week of White Supremacy, One Hood. We are Black creatives and cultural organizers dedicated to liberation for all.
We make change through our 5 pillars of engagement: arts and culture, education, media, civic engagement, and cultural organizing.
Our civic engagement and cultural organizing work activates traditionally marginalized and excluded individuals to lift their voices toward creating a truly reflective democracy.
Now more than ever, we need to work together.
We support Black artists to make sure their lived experience is part of the cultural narrative.
We don't know what the next years will bring, but we're ready to meet the challenge.
Your support has never been more important.
We love you, One Hood.
Thank you.
We must act as one hood.
Now is the time.